indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on to roll call. Averill. Here. Tranby.
He's absent.
Absent. Zorn.
Here.
Edlund.
Here.
And Wakefield is present. Approval of the agenda. State's Attorney Tennyson would like to be added to the agenda. That's all I have.
I motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the state's attorney.
Thank you. Motion by Edlund to approve the agenda with the admission of the state's attorney. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Second by Zorn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Agenda approved. Have a look at the February 5th meeting minutes. Anything on the minutes that's stick out?
I hope not.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the minutes and dispense with the reading.
We have a motion by Edlund to approve the minutes as presented and dispense with the reading. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Zorn. We'll hold it open for discussion until everybody has a chance to. Have a second look at the meeting minutes, and when everybody's ready, we'll move on to the vote. Any further discussion on the minutes? Barring no further discussion, we'll move on to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. You'll have a look at the bills. Sam, anything that stands out in the bills?
Yes. So with DNA Mobilities, there is one in here for, you'll see a correction there. It came out of computer hardware and it should have been server updates, so we did get that fixed. But there is one in here, the 1951. I think that's the one.
What page?
On page 4. And my computer has been having some little glitches and stuff like that. My mouse isn't working, my keyboard isn't working, my ports are going out in the front. There's all kinds of things. I've had Travis look at it, and he is recommending that we replace my computer. That will take that line over, and so it's up to you guys what you would like to do. It's working right now, but the ports are out in the front of it. So if you want to take it out of like general courthouse or the reserve, or keep it out of this one, or not do it at all.
Do we have another computer somewhere in the system that's not being used? It seems like we have 34 or 35.
I don't know.
How much is it going over in the line item?
it's kind of funky because there is so much going on in there, so I would have to do a little thing. Hold on, right? Real quick. It is right now.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a moot point. We're at the first part of the budget cycle, so whatever needs to be spent out of there is, we still have 8 or 9 months of expenses coming out of there.
Yeah, I think the next budget we should put a savings depreciation for computers and slip money away so that when things like this happen, we can keep rotating with the computers. I just know what it's like to work with a computer that doesn't function properly. So,
And it's
especially when your whole world is on your computer.
Yep, and it was kind of going. I was like, I don't know what's going on,
And you don't want it to crash. You want to be able to transfer everything over before it crashes. So it's
Right.
just the sake of where.
Again, I think it's a valid question to see if we have another computer sitting around that's not being used. I think we have 34 terminals, I believe, the last time I saw.
Are they 34 workable terminals? I mean, are they from Windows 7, Windows 9? You know what I mean? Are they old?
I don't know. The only reason I remembered is because when we were talking about the security system and putting the buzzer on there, that's all I remember, the 34 terminals. So I can't answer that question. But it's a question it wouldn't be hard to answer. Do we
Right.
have a?
Usually ask Travis to look and see
Yeah,
if we
right.
can find one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly something that could be explored. If it's not possible, it's not possible. But
Well, we meet again in a week.
next week.
So, I mean.
did you try
can we-
switching to mouse?
Yep,
Can
yep. We did a
move
wired
this?
mouse. We did, yeah, and
So
all.
you tried multiple things and
Yeah.
it just didn't work.
Yep. Well, let's see if there's another one.
Can we move this? Can you ask Travis if there's another computer in the building that we can transfer over to?
Absolutely.
And
And
then,
you wouldn't need our approval to do that. That could just
Would
be
it?
done.
right. If not, bring it back next week.
Sounds good.
Anything else on the bills?
And then that one is the $1,255.95. That's that expense. So you'll need to table that one.
Okay.
I don't see it.
Underneath it, the one couple underneath it, you said.
Oh, I think I got it.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of there.
Yep. So that one I'll need to table.
Anything else, Sam, on the bills?
Nope. Not that I've seen.
I'll make a motion to approve the bills.
Oh, there's his dues. Sorry, there is dues. The North Dakota Weed Control Association dues.
Do we normally pay that?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the invoices minus the computer and the weed control. Association.
Where's the weed control? Oh, I got it right. $285.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a motion by Edlin to approve the bills with the exception of computer hardware for $1,255.95 and also the exemption of the North Dakota Weed Control Association for $285. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Averill. We'll move on to a roll call vote. Averill.
Aye.
Zorn.
Aye.
Edlund.
Aye.
Wakefield votes aye. Bills approved. Let's see, we added State's Attorney Tennyson to the agenda. Are you ready?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just have a couple things. I was listening to the meeting on Zoom last meeting, and I think that we need to get back to some Robert's rules for meetings again, because at one point there was a bunch of yelling at that meeting, but there were 3 different conversations going on within the meeting, and it was absolutely impossible watching the meeting from Zoom to be able to pay attention and figure out what conversation you should be paying attention to. So I want to caution you guys that, and everybody that comes to the meeting, that the chairperson gets a call on who talks, and it's an open meeting, not an open forum. So that doesn't mean that anybody that is in here gets to speak. Also, it appears that there's probably been quite a bit of calling around before the meetings and discussion beforehand. I want to caution everybody that meetings, if you call more than one person and discuss an issue, that becomes a meeting. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that and recognizes that and remind everyone of that again. But yeah, it was awfully hard to pay attention and figure out who I was supposed to be listening to at the last meeting because there was so much stuff going on at one time.
So we've talked about this before, and this wouldn't be an issue if it was just the 5 of us, because we all understood what we were talking about, but it's not. We represent the public at large. The public needs to be able to determine what our intentions were for the way we voted, and for us to be able to explain our position. If they're not able to do that because we're talking over each other or whatever the reason might be, then we've done a disservice to the public. So again, these are open meetings, they're not open forums. The discussion is for the 5 of us plus anybody that is on the agenda. It's not from the gallery. Everybody's welcome to attend. Not everybody is welcome to participate. And it has to be that way, because otherwise we end up in a position where you have a subset, a small group of people getting to voice their opinion that influences the whole. If we advertise these meetings as open to the public, then everybody would come here open and talk. But it's not open to the public, so we only get people that violate that rule and come and try to influence the decisions. And that just can't be that way. Most of these issues we deal with are money, and it's not our money. It is the taxpayers' money, and they have a right to voice their opinion on where that's spent. They have a right to expect us to follow the rules as far as budgeting goes. And the only way they can really keep an eye on us is through these public meetings. So I've been just as guilty as the rest of you of talking over each other, and we're going to try to be better in this, if possible. Anything else, Jamie?
I just have one question on that, I'm sorry. So are we allowed to just speak like we have been, or do we have to raise each other hand and have you call on us?
No, if you acknowledge, I can't remember a time where anybody's been shut up and not been able to voice their opinion. Okay. I mean, it might be down the road a little ways, but the whole purpose, if we just obey the basic tenet that when you make a motion and the motion is seconded, that isn't the end of discussion, that's the start of discussion. And we've kind of gotten away from that to a certain extent, because some of these things like closing the meeting or approving the bills really don't require much discussion. So it's motion, second, and vote. But really for the major items, it's supposed to be a motion and a second, and then the discussion and then the vote. Because without the motion and the second, according to Robert's Rules of Orders, some of these wouldn't even be discussed. It would be a dead subject at that point. So just because 2 people wanted to discuss it, that makes it open discussion. If one does, it doesn't. And so, again, we're representing a subset of people, each one of us, and we're not making decisions for them. We're trying to make decisions that are their decisions, and the only way they have to determine that is by listening to what we're doing. And we all have different opinions, and those opinions clash at times. We need to do better to make sure that we get to voice our opinions, of course, because you're voicing your opinions for the people you represent, but we also need to try to make it so it's understandable to people listening to the recording. And I think that's Jamie's point.
Yeah, it was difficult to figure out what was going on.
The other thing that I want to and we're gonna talk about that here, but it is part of the, we're not entered into an ongoing budget discussion. When the budget's closed, the budget's closed. And other than emergency situations, it's not to be amended. And you've got a handout here in front of you, 11-2306 and 11-2307. And if you take a look at that, it pretty well puts the question to an end on how we're supposed to do this. So expenditures cannot be made in excess of appropriation. Straightforward. If it wasn't appropriated during the budget, you can't make that expenditure. It goes on to provide one exception for that. If the appropriation for any purpose is not sufficient to meet the expenditures required by law, the county auditor, on the order of the Board of Commissioners, may make a transfer to the required fund from any other fund except sinking funds, the road funds, and funds used to retire indebtedness. And then there has to be a full statement in detail entered into the county record, commissioner's record, of why that took place. So it doesn't matter if the funding is from wherever the funding came from, whether it be a result of a levy or whether it be the result of a government giving us money. That money is not to be distributed unless it goes through the appropriation process. So if there's money sitting in an account, that isn't mad money. That dollar, every dollar in that account will offset what the citizens are expected to pay the next budget cycle. So if there's money sitting here, that's not money we just take and go spend it. We take that money, as we have many times, bring it into the budget for purposes needed throughout the budget and offset levy. And if we do it outside the budget process, say there's money sitting here and we use it for this department or that department or that department. Now all the other departments that could have used or should have had a right to be able to use that money have been left out because they've been left out of the budget process. And we don't change the budget process because an elected official changes. We don't change the budget process for anything other than if something was neglected, and by law we have to cover it. It's straightforward here. We got to quit these meetings. This is an ongoing budget process, and this is not the way it's supposed to go, and it's not legal the way that we're doing this. We live with what we put forward. We told the citizens, here's what we're going to spend. The citizens take us at our word because we're obligated to do that, and to do otherwise is a disservice and quite possibly not legal. So let's keep that in mind. Let's do the business we're supposed to be doing here, and during the budget process, all these issues can be addressed, but not until then. That's when the citizens get to weigh in. Anything else, Jamie?
No.
Sheriff Beaver.
Morning, everyone. I just want to keep it brief this morning since we're meeting next week as well. But I sent updated quotes. I think they're pretty much along the same lines as the last quotes I sent. And I would like to attempt to amend that line item if possible. Or possibly talking to Sam, there's some COVID funds. Maybe we could go a half and half or something, whatever you guys feel is necessary to help me out. At least get myself and Deputy Risbuck for technology we need to more efficiently do our job. I'll just leave it up to you guys for discussion. We'll go from there.
So I'll refer to 11. Yes, you can amend your budget, money in the budget to, if with the approval. But 11-2307, and unless the expenditure is required by law, you can't take it from another fund.
Okay.
And if you've read this, no.
Last year we used COVID funds to purchase their vests,
We did.
and that was out of the budget season.
It was?
It was during the midtime, so
And we were told by Sheriff Hook that was required by law that they have the vests, and that's why that took place. We've also done it with the senior citizens because they're required to keep the ride share and the Meals on Wheels, and if that runs out of money, they're in violation of the contract they signed. So there are instances where it has to be done. There's instances where it can't be done. And there's gray areas too. I mean, it all depends on can you justify what took place? Is it a moral issue? Is it a moral issue and a issue of law? It's all dependent on how you look at it and how the people you represent would look at it. But as far as transferring money within his budget, that is a valid request. And if you want to explain that to us, we can take that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just a quick math here. So if we went with just the first quote, which is the taser and body cameras, comes out to $31,834.90. And then if you guys felt it necessary to upgrade the vehicles as well to the same system, the vehicles is $24,568.80, which comes out to a total of $56,403.70. And that's to buy out the entire contract like you suggested. So, which falls under, I think it's $57,200 for that chief deputy line item.
Is that your request?
That's my request. And I'm still learning here, so
No,
I appreciate all your input
and it
just
might
trying to do things right and-
might seem that some of the things that are voiced against this are arbitrary. They're not. They're all based in this whole notion that this isn't our money and the taxpayers deserve the right to know where their money is going to be spent. And the only way to do that is to have rules set forth and a procedure in order to do that. And coming from law enforcement, you certainly understand that there has to be rules and procedures, and that's how we're doing this. Now, during the budget season, everybody has a right to put forward a budget that the county commission decides appropriates the money accordingly, because of course there's not enough money going around. This next budget season, we're faced with hundreds of thousands of dollars of upgrades to the software. We're faced with $60,000, not the fault of yours, Sheriff Beaver, but of Sheriff's Department that was overspent. We have many things that we're going to have to try to fix, and we don't have the funding to fix all of them. We have the senior citizens that are going to be into a position where they can't fulfill their obligations to the state. So we have a proposal in front of the commission, and I guess that's what we're discussing. If we want to discuss it, we'll need a motion in order to approve that, in order to move it forward.
So move.
We have a motion by Edlin to accept Sheriff Beaver's amendment of his 2024 budget. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Second by Abriel. So now we'll move on to the discussion part of this. Typically in the discussion part of it, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to justify why you agree or disagree with the motion. The public has the right to understand why your vote is what it is. And of course, just because you made the motion doesn't mean you have to vote in the affirmative for the motion. We're just in the discussion part of it. So from my perspective, with the approval of the commission, Sheriff Beaver has the ability to amend his budget. I personally don't agree. I believe that the added deputy would be a more benefit than the cameras. But that's my opinion, and there's 4 more of us. And I would hope that the people that are for this would voice their opinion and be able to justify where they stand.
The question I have, just catch me up again on this. I wasn't here last week. I listened in, and anyway, what you wanted to change? Just kind of catch me up here. What you wanted to do? You wanted to not get the deputy, and you wanted to go with the cameras and tasers.
There's a shortage to begin with in the state, and like I mentioned, I had talked with one gentleman last week, and it came down to technology and benefits, and compared to other departments. We don't have body cameras, we don't have tasers that arrest people. Our options, if we get into a sticky situation, are hands-on, wrestling on the ground, or use of deadly force presented, which, I mean, that's quite the jump to escalate from, so. But I was talking with him, and it came down to benefits. That's ultimately made his decision to not move forward with the hiring process, so. Outside of that, I mean, I have a couple other people interested, but maybe part-time, hourly kind of work, and it wouldn't be until this fall, so. I mean, thankfully we have the help from Barnes County if we need it, but so far me and Tyler have been able to work pretty well so far the last couple of months, so. So I'd just like to move forward with this technology. There's so many pros and some cons with the technology, but I know Jamie's familiar with it. Nelson County has the system. I had the system in Wells County, and it's top of the line, and it just makes our jobs easier, safer, keeps liability for us. And I think it makes it a whole lot nicer for Jamie's office as well. I'm sure Jamie could have some thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's no doubt that body cameras are there's I guess it's work in my benefit and potentially work in the county's benefit if something happens. It is nice to have them.
So the question comes down to then, we want to take money from the deputy to buy this. So we're just amending the.
That's my understanding, is amending the chief deputy line item for this year.
For this year.
Then we can move forward in the budget process later this summer.
That's correct. If that's what you're requesting,
Yes.
that's correct.
Yes.
And so we're actually not going to add any money to the line item. It would
No,
just be.
and that follows the letter of the law of budgeting, where you can move money around within a budget with the approval of the commission. Taking from another budget would require it to be
Right.
a matter of law.
Right,
in
but we
order to
wouldn't
do that.
have to.
No, this would not increase the indebtedness of the citizens. This would just transfer priority.
With what Sheriff Bob Hooka told us when he was still here, and I can agree with what we have going on, is that it's so hard to hire. You said you had a couple that may want to come on an hourly or whatever, but right now we're not having any luck finding somebody to.
Not for full time.
Not for full time.
Just a list of the ads you sent me. I mean, there's competition. I mean,
That's
just
why
on and
I
on.
just wanted to throw it out there, just so you guys are aware.
Yeah.
I mean, that's every department in the state posts their job openings on there, so you can kind of see competitively. I think our wages are competitive. It's just the benefits is where we really fall short. And I think that plays a huge part of it. I mean, a couple of years ago at Lake Region, the academy had close to upwards of 20 to 30 students in the academy, and currently there's 3. And
Yeah.
2 of them are tribal, so
And
that's the shortage we're dealt with. And that was the #1 contributing factor to why Shane Johnson left. I mean, can't compete with the highway patrol, not even close, salary or benefits.
never going to be able to, no matter what we did. If we raise theirs, they raise theirs, and they, of course, they lowered the requirements. So they dipped into the pool that we used to be able to dip into. It used to be college educated and up 4-year degree, and now they came down into the rest of the pool. Which, what do you do? I mean, we are a small county. We have to compete against everybody in the state. On a dollar basis, we will never have the ability to outbid
And,
somebody else at once.
From what I've seen in my experience from Wells County and Ada County is, especially with this shortage, I mean, we really need to focus on retention. And that's where I think this technology would go a long ways in keeping the deputy we do have, and less it would increase the likelihood of bringing somebody else in, hopefully.
So there's nothing going on though with the COVID funds. We don't have to move any money from that.
Those funds will be able to be moved into the budget process, into the appropriation during the budget process.
It can be moved anytime. according to this.
But it has to be an emergency situation, right?
It doesn't say that in here either. It just says we can move funds appropriately. Transfer of money from other funds. It says we may transfer the required fund from other funds, except for the other ones.
You didn't read the first part of 2307. If the appropriation for any purpose is not sufficient to meet the expenditures required by law, the county, so you can move them if it's required by law from these other funds, but it excludes a bunch of funds too.
But we don't, for this situation, we don't have to, he just wants to just amend his money.
That's correct.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with that.
Okay, okay.
Because what do you got in there for that other deputy? It's like, what, 60,000 or something like that?
57,200.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's like right on the line of the other deputy.
Yeah, so there'd be roughly 800 left over after this.
Okay. And
that would be for body cameras, tasers, and then both in-car video systems.
And that's just like you're saying, just 2 for now.
Yep.
And then when we eventually, in the future, get a 3rd deputy, we can look into adding those in the future. That's what you're
Yes.
thinking?
Yes. And at that point, we already own all the rights to the software and everything, so we'd just be paying for the devices
Okay.
once we go to move forward and add a 3rd person on.
Any further discussion?
And it's basically, it's just not safety for you guys, but even the tasers themselves are pretty much safety for the citizens. That way you can use less lethal force versus lethal force, correct?
Yes, even just the presence of that, 9 times out of 10 de-escalates a lot of situations.
Give me those dollar figures again.
Yeah, you want just all of them?
Just the current fund balance.
The current fund is 57,200,
Yeah.
and then the total of everything is 56,403.70.
403.
And that's for tasers.
2 tasers, what, 2 body cameras?
Yes, 2 tasers, 2 body cameras, and then 2 in-car video systems.
And it would just be mounted on the dash?
There'd be one mounted on the windshield,
Okay.
facing forward, and then there's a smaller camera in the back.
Okay, so
that
there's
goes into
2,
the cage.
there's
Yep.
2 per vehicle. Okay. So 4 vehicle cameras, 2 body cameras, and 2 tasers, and plus the software.
57,200. That's from the. What's the name of that line item?
Deputy.
Chief deputy. Yep.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
One last question, if this doesn't go through and he's got the 57,200 and he keeps trying to find a deputy, we don't find one, we just roll the money next year right back into the same line item?
General fund.
No.
It would go to the general fund.
It goes back to the general fund. Yeah.
Okay,
So it doesn't accumulate.
okay.
It offsets levy. So if it's not, it offsets the levy. So you would still negotiate the same budget, but there wouldn't be excess funds in there. The funds that aren't spent will just mean a lesser cost to the taxpayer if the same budget was put in place.
One last question for Beaver on the cost of these. When, let's just say we put it into your vehicle now, and 6 months from now or a year from now you get a new vehicle, how hard is it to move it from vehicle to vehicle?
That'd probably be more of a Travis question, or
Okay.
I know the Axon person said they would be present.
I've tried to find them.
Just be a matter of just taking everything out, putting it back in. So, I don't know what exactly we're going to do except for that, but
Okay.
removing a few screws and running some wires, I would think.
And then they're good for, what is like the warranty on these? Stuff like that, like what is the life expectancy of the warranty, everything else?
So that plugs into the contract, and the 5-year contract that they do. Then, like I said previously, so you get new devices at the start, and then at about 2.5 years, halfway through, we'll get a device refreshed, so we'll get brand new devices. Whether that's, if they have a new model out, or whatever. whatever the case is, and then at the end of the 5 years, we'll get another device refresh. So we're actually getting
Upgraded 3 times
yeah,
total.
three upgrades over the next 5 years.
And what is the life expectancy technically on these devices? Do you know, 2.5, 3, 5 years, or?
Yeah, I guess I never heard an exact number for that one. As far as hoping that the person would be available.
So exploring all the options in this, and life expectancy is the one that comes up, of course. These are not required items for the sheriff's department, and we are certainly faced with a situation where we don't know who's going to be sheriff come the first of the year. It's quite possible that if things change, and I have no indication to think that who's going to be sheriff, but the new sheriff could say, I don't want to use the body cameras, and we spent money unnecessarily. And that's always an option. We've never had an election for sheriff that has been uncontested. I don't have any indication of somebody running or not. But keep in mind that this is not an elected position as of yet. This has been an appointed position. And it won't be an elected position with an agenda until that takes place. So there's a lot of, this is more complicated than it looks, but is simplistic also in his request. So it's up to you guys to decide what you want to do. If there's no further discussion, we'll move on to a vote. So the proposal put forward and to the commission is to take $57,200 from the chief deputies, to take $56,403.70 from the chief deputy's budget line item, which is $57,200, to allow Officer Beaver, Sheriff Beaver, to buy tasers, body cameras, and in-car cameras with that $56,403.70. We have a motion and a second to that. This will be a roll call vote, being it has to do with money. And if it's approved, we'll have to then vote on amending the budget to that effect. Aye to the affirmative, nay to the negative. Averill.
Aye.
Soren.
Nay.
Edlund.
Aye.
Wakefield votes nay. We'll have to table that until we have a quorum or a voting majority, which will be next meeting. So if we'll put that back on the agenda for next meeting. Anything else on the updates, Sheriff Beaver?
No, that was all. Thank you.
Okay. So there is no need to put anything other than this back on the agenda. We don't need an explanation. We know we've talked about it now. It's just a matter of getting 5 people and a majority and see where we're at.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I don't have to learn it. I appreciate all of your time and experience.
No, thank you. Kelly, Clerk of Court.
In your packet is the letter from the state office. We get this every year, and it's just a contract. The next contract will be from 2025 to 2027. And this just, they're asking if we would like to continue being funded by the state, or the other option is number 2 there, to provide services at the county's expense.
I see they've dropped down the.
Went down a couple points.
Yeah, no,
so
we're down.
The numbers are based on, it's a 2-year average.
Yeah.
So last year and the previous year, which last year was the lowest year, I think, in maybe 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can remember when it was over 50% at one time. 47%? 0.47?
0.4 something.
Yeah.
At our last clerk's meeting, so the way that they determined this number, the FTEs, is old it's an old standard, and at our last clerk's meeting, they are updating it, which is good. It's something that I know I've been very vocal about how they come up with that number, because it's very, very, very off in my opinion. There's a lot of things that study didn't include, and a lot of things was paper then, and it doesn't include court time and, you know, pro se, encounter and email, a lot of that stuff. So they are going to be redoing that. When that's going to happen, I don't know if it's this year, next year, or whatnot. But so that's always kind of it's a moving number. Can go up, can go down. I don't think it's a very accurate number at all. But anyways, that's the decision is option 1 or 2. It's just a simple letter that we do every other year.
What option did we do last time?
We've always done the
Always on
state
number
base.
1.
We always done number 1?
Yeah.
Okay. Want me to make a motion for that? Is that what we're looking for, a motion?
Yes, if you so desire.
I make a motion to accept option 1. The Board of Commissioners may elect and enter into the funding agreement of the 2025-2027 premium to receive reimbursement for the providing clerk services.
We have a motion by Edlin to enter into a service agreement for funding agreement with the state clerk of court. Same agreement we've been in all the time. This would fund 0.27 of a full-time employee. This is what we've done forever. It is there's no changes at all, is there? No changes to it other than the percentage.
No.
Okay.
No. And based on our current numbers now, I would suspect in 2 years it's going to, like I said, it's a floating number.
Yep.
But
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Avriel. Discussion. There is one more option that's offered by the Century Code, and the option is to don't go with number 1 or number 2, and then the court would step in and provide the services at no cost to us. But so there is 3 options. They've only listed 2 here. But that's not on the table here. Any further discussion?
You said this is something we do every year?
Every 2 years.
Well, but I mean, like, we're involved in it every re-signing or whatever, same thing over and over again.
Mhm. Further discussion? Barring no discussion, we will move on to a voice vote to approve the funding agreement between Griggs County and actually the Supreme Court. Aye to the positive, nay to the negative. Avriel?
Aye.
Zorn?
Aye.
Hedlund?
Aye.
Wakefield votes aye. Funding agreement approved. Thank you, Kelly.
here's the letter if you want to. Standard, I just changed the date and your name. I'll get you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Tax director position.
I did run the ad for a contract tax director, and I received Alan. Help me with his last name. Vietmeyer.
Yep.
Received his information on Friday after I had left for the day, and so it did get into your packet, but just a little late. But that is on page 16 through 29.
So who made the changes here?
He did.
These are his adjustments for accepting it.
Mm-hmm.
The one comment I have that concerns me is under the code that if there's no local assessor, it shall be provided by the county. So if he's not willing to do it, we don't have an assessor for the townships, and we're kind of back in the same situation that we were before to try to scramble to find an assessor.
That's what stands out to me. Any city or, well, let's read the duties of the, continue the discussion. Let's read the duties of the tax director, and then we'll go from there.
Maddie also brought me in those applications that she had talked about at the last meeting, the veterans homestead and the farm exemption, ones that need a signature. I'm not sure what you'd like to do with those.
Yeah.
We do need those signed and completed so that I am able to upload the abstract to the state by March 1st.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So basically, the powers, the duties of the tax director are 5 different duties here as outlined by the Century Code. They all of them have to do with assisting the assessors, which requires you to be on site in Griggs County to assist the assessors. The one that he crossed out here was any city or township that did not retain a certified Class 1 or Class 2 assessor shall utilize the certified assessor of the county in which the city or township is located. The county commission may require the city or township to reimburse the county for the expenses incurred in assessing the property that the city or the township. So the primary duty of the tax director is to assist the assessors. Secondary duties are to assist the elderly, the veterans, and the disabled with applying for the property tax exemption, which of course takes you being on site, probably going to their homes. It appears like, understandably, he can't abide by being on site because he is a tax director in Burleigh County, and the job requires him to be on site. So how can he say in our position that he's not going to be here, but in his current position as tax director, he has to be there. So this contract, by excluding the main duty of the director of tax equalization, and he's not able to fulfill that, we don't get anything here.
On the page 24, 25, and 26 are all the tasks that are required to be done. It appears he went through there and wrote down the tasks that he will complete. You know, as per part of the contract. And like I said before, and I say it again, right now we don't have a tax director. We need somebody to do the tasks. Ultimately, yes, we'd like to have somebody in-house to be the active tax director, an employee preferably, not contract out. But until we can hire somebody, these are tasks from January all the way to December that need to be completed.
Can you point out to me in the Century Code where any one of those is a required task? Because I can't find it.
So, well, these are tasks that
he put forward. Can you point to me in the Century Code that any one of those is a duty?
We put these forward when we put down our...
He presented us with this document. We just plagiarized it. We didn't ask for this. He presented it to us.
But our initial document had these January through December tasks.
That he presented to us.
addendum.
That he presented to us.
And we accepted that. So on the other one is showing the task that he's willing to do.
Please show me in the Century Code that any of these tasks are required by the tax director.
Well, who does them otherwise?
The way they've always been done, they're done by the bureaucracy. The people in-house here do that. The tax director is not a long-term position. It hasn't been in place, and the duties of the tax director haven't been changed forever. They've just been, duties have been thrown on to the tax director because it's easier for some of the other elected officials, but they're not prescribed duties.
I mean, we get one or two options. Have a contract with somebody until you hire somebody to do the addendum tasks until somebody's hired, or hire somebody just to do the sales tax ratio, because ultimately the sales tax ratio is personally my biggest thing that needs to be completed for the year.
And again, that isn't a duty of the tax director, of course. But as I look at these duties, he even put a line through most of his duties here. So in January, he assessment date for centrally assessed railroads. He doesn't want to do that.
No?
He doesn't want to do the public utilities. He doesn't want the applications for the state tax commissioner. Over here, he doesn't want to do the homestead property tax. He doesn't want to do the disabled veterans property tax. Those are some of the major duties that we would want him to do. Those are benefits to the citizens, and he doesn't want to do that.
I talked to him about those because I do know that those are kind of a big situation in right now. And we did ask him if he would be willing, if we sent the applications out, which we've already done, if he would sign off on those, and then we would then upload, my office would upload that to the state, and he said yes, he would be willing to help with that. So
we're dealing with the contract that he sent back to us here, and this is a written document. He has excluded all those. What he says and what this document says are in conflict, and the document is the one that
prevails. If he's willing
prevails.
to negotiate the contract of the duties, that'd be great. Maybe we should just bring him on next meeting and visit with him on the contract that he presented to us, to see if we can make some adjustments, like what we could do to make it work. You know, it's what, $5,000 a month for him. Is that what I do believe it says? And we don't have a lot of time to waste and push this down the road very far, because we do have that sales ratio that's due at the end of March.
We have a contract in front of us right now that we're discussing.
I think we should bring Alan on next month to ask him about, to see if he'd be willing to do those things in March.
We have a contract right now that we're discussing. After we finish the discussion on the contract, a yay or a nay on the contract, or a tie.
Oh, a motion? I make a motion to accept the contract.
We have a motion by Edlin to accept the contract as presented. Is there a second to that? Motion dies for lack of a second. MLGC service agreement.
Can we go back to what we would like to do with these applications?
They're on the, where are they on the agenda here?
Tax director position,
Okay.
because these need an assessor's signature, and none of us have
Yeah,
that.
so
That
what we've done in
matches.
the past is we've approved them as a county commission to move forward, because we haven't had a tax director for some time when we've done these, correct? Connie signed off on
I
them
think Connie
with our
did 'em.
approval.
I don't think they've ever come to you.
No, we gave Connie the approval to sign off on them, or she asked approval to sign off on them.
Okay.
And now Maddie doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, Maddie's not comfortable with her signature.
Okay, so what we have here are the,
I wouldn't open them.
huh?
I wouldn't open them, because then that makes them
It makes them what? I'm not gonna bring them into the public. We're not gonna
okay,
bring them into the
that's what
public
I was
sphere.
thinking. I'm like, they're not blacked out or
I'm going
anything.
to, these are the applications for the veterans property tax relief. These are the applications for the farm residents tax exemption. And what's the HC?
Homestead.
Homestead credit tax exemption. So what these exemptions do is just what the name says. They exempt the taxpayer from paying the property tax or a portion of the property tax. Then that dollar figure is turned over to the state reimburses the county for those taxes. So this does not hinder the county. This helps its residents by bringing in funds from the state to cover the property tax. So it's a win-win for the citizens and for Griggs County in general. And it's a state-funded program that allows us to give some relief to the people that can least afford paying property tax.
So we need a motion for a signer?
We need a motion for approval. So approve the applications. And so the motion would be that the county commission is taking, given the fact we don't have an assessor, they didn't have assessors for these townships or the city, that we are taking the responsibility for approval.
Who signs off on it, then you do, or what? Or is it just kind of a deal that, since it's all approved, we don't have to?
As approved, I would.
Okay, I
the
just
way it's
didn't
done
know if
before.
somebody had to sign off after we approve it, that's why I'm curious.
Well, by our approval, we are signing off.
Okay.
But how much of the credit do they get? Like 100%, 50%? That's kind of what Maddie was talking about, and she's not. I have no idea.
Because you have to do proof of income to find out where they are on the percentage, if they get 100 or 20, or is that what it is?
They
I don't know if
provide-
it's income or it's like
Part of it's disability status.
Yeah.
Part of it is income.
Yeah.
But do you get 100? I mean, if you hand this paper in, fill this out, do you get 100% guaranteed, or is it a percentage?
No, it'd be. I assume a percentage.
Who figures that out?
They do.
Who's they?
The applicant. So this doesn't, so by, do you have a blank one so I can read that?
Basically, by filling out all their information, they figure out what they need for a credit, and then all we have to do is just approve it from there.
They attest to it,
Okay.
is what the language says. Let me get a form. So we read this at the last meeting. So there's been a misconception that you have to provide proof, and that isn't the case. It's you attest to these are the facts, and then we move forward from there.
So who reviews them? Nobody? We just accept them the way they are in the folder?
Yeah, even a tax assessor doesn't have the ability to look at private information. Now, let me read this. Let's read this, and you'll see why.
I'm not, people even Google it.
It's on the form.
Well, it was, so now it's like a automated one or whatever, so you click on it and then you kind of fill it out. It's not like the actual form.
Let's cover up one of them.
Okay. So they do fill out their income, their social security, their wages, salary. They fill out medical expenses they have. All those lines. And then they do sign their name that they say above is correct. And then to be completed by the assessor, the application is approved or denied. Reason for denied, a percentage of the reduction, which is...
You have to.
Where does it on the application tell you the percentage?
Where you at? There you go.
Oh, okay. If a person's income is not in excess of 40,000, a reduction of 100% of the taxable valuation of the person's homestead up to the max bringing 9,000 of taxable valuation.
Okay, so here's the applicable language in here. It's under applicant signature. I declare under the penalty of North Dakota Century Code 12.1-11.2, which provides for a Class A misdemeanor for making a false statement in a governmental matter, that this return, including my accompanying schedules and statements, has been examined by me and to the best of my knowledge and belief is true, correct, and complete return. I am willing to furnish proof of the age and income if requested to do so by someone authorized to administer this assessment credit. I reside on this property described in this application and hereby claim the homestead credit on this property as provided in North Dakota Century Code 570208.1. I can't attest to who would be qualified to do that, but to look at someone's personal.
To be completed by the assessor is grayed out, and underneath there it says approved, denied for the reasons denied, but the percentage reduction allowed or the maximum of blank based on blank of ownership of property, that's to be completed by the assessor, not by the...
We don't have an assessor, so
by the
it's
person.
not. So the question is it 100% ownership of the property?
I think the question Sam had was, who's going to figure out the percentage of the reduction? Is it 50 or 100? Wasn't that the question?
That's kind of what Maddie was saying.
No, you have to read that. You have to read that in its entirety. The percentage of reduction allowed, or a maximum of dollars, based on the percentage of ownership in the property. So if you have 100% ownership in the property, you get to have 100% reduction.
Scroll down to item C, under C. Read that. Where it says, the exemption must be determined according to the following schedule.
That's what it's up on
And then
top
the
there.
next one says, if the person's income is in excess of 40,000 and not excess of 70,000, reduction is 50%. So that's their question is, who's going to figure that if it's 100 or 50?
To be completed by the assessor. All we have to know is if we can ask Maddie if there's 100% ownership in the property. If there's 100% ownership in the property, then it's 100% reduction in the information they've given us.
If the person's income is not excess of 40,000 and reduction of 100% of taxable valuation, the person's homestead maximum reaches 100%. If the person's income is less than. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, I think Maddie's question is whether she gets 50 or 100%. Who determines that?
So Maddie determines based on the tax records for that piece of property, interest in that property, is the applicant the 100% or 50% ownership. Read that in its entirety. 50% or percent reduction allowed or a maximum dollar amount based on percent of ownership or interest in the property. So if you own 100% of the property, you would get 100% of the reduction. If you own 50%, you would get 50%. If you own 60%, you get 60%. Okay. That's the way I read it. So
I read it that as if it's less than 40, they get 100%, but if it's between 40 and 70, they get 50%.
And that's all, and that all takes place up here. All this is asking.
Right.
All this is asking is the percent of ownership. So what, the fact that we don't have that they don't have an assessor,
Do we want to ask like Tasha Kruger to sign off on these since she is an assessor? I'm not trying to obligate her or anything like that. I have not talked to her, but just kind of thinking maybe she would be willing to help with this, or Farah.
Jamie?
Who pays for that?
Can we have a third party do that?
Yeah, I mean, you can appoint someone, an assessor, to do it.
Can we do it?
I don't see why you can't. I think we have in the past.
Yeah, the assessor works at the pleasure of the commission. I mean, we're talking about giving a benefit here to the citizens of Griggs County. What is this argument about? Denying them the credit that they deserve? I don't
think
get
there's
it.
an argument at all on this. I think
Well,
it's
then
just
let's.
clarification.
So what would be
The only
the?
thing that we have to be cautious of is that we have to make, I think we do have to make sure that it's done right, because that money is reimbursed by the state, and I suppose they do double check the paperwork.
Yep, and they have the ability. If it's done incorrectly, it falls back on the person that did the application.
I think there were just some of those, like especially Maddie, she's worried about signing off, and if it's the wrong deal, then she's going to get in trouble over it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can appoint her to sign off on it, or appoint you, or as a commission to do that, I don't see what the harm is. As long as we can legally do that, I don't see the harm.
If she doesn't feel comfortable, I want to force her to sign.
Yeah,
up.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if we're going to appoint her, we may as well take the responsibility and do it as a commission.
Yeah.
If the state comes back and says, no, you can't do that, what's the penalty is what? So it doesn't,
Okay.
they don't pay the price.
So-
My recommendation actually would probably just be have one commissioner go through it and present it to the commission. And the reasoning being is that we don't want all these documents in front of the public. They're subject to open meetings and open records.
Okay.
None of us have the ability to look at their financial records. Neither does an assessor. That's why that statement's in there that the applicant declares that these are
Right.
correct. In fact, in the past, we've gotten, there's been a lot of pushback because people didn't want to give that information. They wanted it covered up, and they wouldn't go along with it because that information is not for you or I or anybody else. That's why we take the word of the applicant that this is true. And if someone questions it at the state level, they've already agreed that they'll provide the necessary information.
Okay, well, I make a motion to appoint John to sign the homestead credit as the assessor.
We have a motion by Stephanie to appoint the chairman, Wakefield, to assign the homestead credit, the veterans credit, the farmstead credit, and we don't have a disabled,
Yep, we have vet credits, homestead credits, and farmstead credits.
Yes.
no veterans. There's 4 of them total.
Isn't the veterans part of one of them?
Homestead credit, vet credit, and farmstead credit. So you do have a vet credit.
Okay, no disabled credit. Handicap credit. There's a handicap credit
I
too.
think that's
in with it.
I think that's the
That's in.
homestead credit.
Okay. We have a motion by Stephanie to appoint Wakefield to sign off on the various tax credits. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Avriel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion approved. I will do that.
Sorry, I just had Maddie come in because I wanted to make sure that wasn't payment.
So the only thing we need from either the auditor or the treasurer is a percentage of ownership in the property that is requested to be exempted. That's it. That's public record.
Yeah.
So that's all we need. And once that we have the percentage of ownership, then that should go to the percentage of reduction of credit, and we'll be able to sign off on it.
Okay. So we'll have to submit that, what's it called? Because it's due by March 1st, the app, so we'll have to be late, probably.
Yeah. Well, we better find out if it can be late.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, I'll have to look into that, see. I would,
Well, if they can't be late, they're doing it first, so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
require just a special meeting. Permission to okay it.
You'll find out about that today.
yeah, I can go do that right now. Do you want me to take those back? Can I take those back so I can see? Yeah, and I'll go check.
Because they'll take a
I
little
know
while.
that I think there's only one that I know for sure that she has half interest, but I don't know if her app's in here or not.
Right, so, I mean, if they claim full interest, that's all we need.
Yep.
You know, we don't have the ability to question them, the state
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, I'll go check now.
Thank you. We'll put that on hold then. Or maybe we should just wait till she comes back here. Let's take a 5-minute break if somebody would.
Oh, make the motion, take 5-minute break.
Motion by Averill to take a 5-minute break. Is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Zorn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. On break. Okay. Session. MLGC service agreement?
I just need your signature on that. That is the service agreement for the internet down to the shop.
Yep.
That was approved during budgets, and so we just need your signature on that. And I will. I'll have you probably sign this one if it's approved. Have you sign that one? But I think they wanted it electronically, so then I can
Yep,
do
then
it
I'll have a double
electronically for
copy.
you.
So we'll need a motion to approve the commercial service agreement with MLGC.
So move.
Motion by Edlund, a second to that.
Second.
Second by Averill. We'll do a roll call vote, being it has to do with money. Averill.
Aye.
Zorn.
Aye.
Edlund.
Aye.
And Wakefield votes aye. Agreement approved. This one right here?
I have it.
Move on to the tax abatement, 32 and 33.
When I sent it out to you guys on Friday, I always forget that these have the back side, and so you guys only seen the front side, but in your packet there is the back side there. The city of Cooper did deny this, denied due to North Dakota Century Code 4024-16, but it needs to come before you guys.
Jamie,
Let me take a look.
where do I sign?
Huh? Yes.
It looks like the argument is that it doesn't have any street frontage. There's grass all the way around the property. Is that the way I understand it?
Yeah, I looked at this morning, that appears like that's the argument. Under 402416, it does state that special assessment shall not be subject to abatement or refund by proceedings under chapter 5723, but shall be reviewed and corrected only in the manner upon conditions provided in 4026. So it does appear that this, I don't know what 4026 is, I'll take a quick look at that.
I mean, this appears to be an eligibility issue. Is the property eligible to be taxed, to have specials taxed on it? Correct?
It does, but I don't know if this is the right process for them to do it. It appears to me that under 40, 4024/16, they have to go to the court to do that, and it's not left up to the discretion of the county to do it.
So what would our motion be to,
Table it, tell the courts or what?
Not take it up.
To reject it.
reject it? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think
Either
they'll
reject
get-
or approve.
Okay, I'll make a motion to reject the abatement application.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Yeah, under 4024/16, the regular abatement method that we use, or that is used, or that they used, isn't permissible for this.
Isn't permissible.
Right, it's not.
So the city didn't have the right to deny it either.
Yeah, I mean,
They couldn't approve it.
they couldn't approve it. I mean, it's just kind of a moot point because it says they shall not use that method of 5723, which is typically used for the abatements on the taxes. So it's not saying that they can't do it, it's just that they use the wrong method to do it.
So we need a motion then of us denying this as because the request is non-applicable. Is that correct?
I'd say that would be, it just cannot, yeah, it can't be done, it cannot follow 5723 like this, like a refund or an abatement is typically done.
Okay. Do you want to amend your motion to that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, so move, amend the motion to,
Motion by Edlin to reject the application as non-applicable. Does that sound right?
correct.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Second by Averill. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approved.
Thank you.
Senior citizens budget. So, budget/ballot measure is what it should say. So if you guys remember, over the last couple of years, the senior citizens has been, 3 years, has been short in their budget because of dealing with the Meals on Wheels, the ride share. The COVID has caused a number of changes in how they conduct business. But the biggest change is that originally when the senior citizens levy was set up, it was supposed to be just for that, for the senior citizens, for their clubhouses and for meals in the clubhouses. And on top of that, over the years, got stacked a bunch of other duties. The ride share, which had needed a sponsor, that was state and federal, and then also the Meals on Wheels program, which needed a sponsor. The senior citizens took that up. Well, long story short, where the senior citizens used to have 2 meals to use towards their needs, as of this last budget, the senior citizens got about 18% of that money actually went towards the intended purpose of the senior citizens, which was to provide a place for them to gather and keep an eye on each other. And of course, originally, you know, the motivation behind this was people that are living in apartments and are elderly and don't have anybody to look after them and need to be able to have a place to congregate so that there's a unity, so that if someone doesn't show up for coffee, someone goes and checks on them. And it was just basically to bring everybody together for the good of the senior citizens. Well, that blossomed into the rest of these programs. There's no money to cover it. The contract they entered into obligates them to cover the Meals on Wheels and the ride share, and the state doesn't seem to be stepping up to cover their portion of it. There's always a funding shortage, so rather than let the programs just die, which I don't think is possible, there's legal issues there. The senior citizens have been devoting all their monies towards it, basically, and the county commission, with the use of the COVID funds, has stepped that up to try to fill in the gap. Now, I was at their meeting here about a month and a half ago, and the projected budget is going to have a shortfall in it by mid-season. Their expenses from last year were up over 250% over what they were the following years. So what's causing that? Some of the other counties are cutting back on their ride share, so we're going longer distances to pick up people. There's more people dependent on the Meals on Wheels program because of the fear of COVID, so they're staying at home rather than coming to the community center. There's a lack of volunteers for the same reason, and the natural aging of the community. So they're having to hire more people to provide the same services. They're just it's a declining, it's a increasing demand with a declining budget. So the correct way to do this is to ask the citizens of Griggs County if they would be willing to approve a mill levy increase. Right now they're getting two mills. I propose, and this isn't a mandatory increase. It would be up to, I propose 5 mills. And so it would give the county commission the ability to levy up to 5 mills in support of the senior citizens program. Now, I don't know if that limit is above or beyond what the Century Code allows. Jamie will have to weigh in on that. But this is just the start of it to try to get this onto the ballot to let the people decide how they want to handle this, and that's the correct way to do it when more money is needed.
We're having a little bit of trouble on that though. 57, 15, 56 doesn't allow to levy a tax exceeding 2 mills.
It goes on to say without the consent of the governed. I think that's what it says later on in that section. Nevertheless, research that, and the next meeting we'll talk about. I just wanted to get it out there so that everybody understood where we're at.
So this would be something we'd bring up the next election to increase the mill levy for it, or what?
Yes,
okay.
Because eventually the funding that we have in place or have the ability to use isn't going to be there. The COVID funds, I'm sure, are going to get used up in this next budget cycle with the software and all, fixing the sheriff's department and all the rest of it. So it would have been artificially buoying up the program, but it needs, if it's going to go forward, it needs a fix. Or maybe it can't have a fix, but we need to put it before the people and see what they decide.
So you're thinking 5 mil, up to 5 mils.
Up to, yeah, we don't.
And then he was thinking up to 4, so it depends on how it
No,
reads.
2 is what the Century Code, 2 is the limit the Century Code says right now, but there's provisions to
I thought he was saying
raise
that you
those.
could only raise it
Oh,
2.
no, up to 2 mil. 2 mils is the limit prescribed by the Century Code. But I think all those limits can be raised via a vote of the people.
I'm trying to find it in my levy limitations as well.
Well, it's in the levy limitations. It is a levy limitation.
57, 15, 6.7.
Anyway, let's have it let's research it and have it for next meeting. And at some point, we'll have to do something. We'll keep an eye on our budget and see where see where they're going as far as,
If you look up at 5715 56-5, so it can be raised upon a majority vote of qualified electors voting on the question.
yeah.
What numbers?
Well, it says North Dakota Century Code 5715-56 and 5715-06.7.
Well, 6.7 is the section that states that the county levying a tax for programs and activities for senior citizens according to section 5715 and 56 may levy a tax not exceeding 2 mils.
And then there's a remark on mine that says upon a majority vote of qualified electors voting on the question.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we should put it on the next one too.
That's what you come up with?
Put it on the next one.
Nope, I mean, that's... So we'll just add this to the next, we have nothing to vote on right now. We'll just add this to the next meeting agenda. Games of Chance permit.
I motion to approve the
Gotta find
Game
it.
of Chance permits. For Little Ministries. Do I need that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Motion by Edlin to approve the Game of Chance permit for Red Willow Ministries. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Averill. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Permit approved. Old courthouse, new courthouse.
I don't have anything.
Future business?
I would like to revisit Alan's contract next meeting with Alan. I would also like to add sales ratio study on there, because that's coming up.
Could I just put tax director position and have everything under that one? Or do you
Well,
want it broke out?
Yeah.
Better break it out just in case.
Jamie, what do we do in a rejected contract?
I mean, we'll have to negotiate. If we can't negotiate and come to an acceptable term, or two acceptable terms for everybody, write the contract.
But I mean, once it's rejected, it's rejected. There has to be a new proposal put forward, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, new offer, new acceptance every time. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
he rejected our contract and we rejected his contract, so
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
sit down at the negotiation table and see what you guys can come up with.
But then the public needs to be informed of that. We didn't offer that to the public, that this was gonna be negotiated, they could come forth and negotiate the contract. We put the contract out there, we just denied that contract.
Right.
It has to go through the whole process again.
Okay, I'll visit with them then. But maybe you'll put a new contract.
We'll have to come up with, well, I mean,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Come up with a contract that's acceptable and advertise it, I guess.
isn't that what we just did?
Yeah, it is.
We should be able to visit with the person who did put the contract in and make negotiations. I do all the time with work. You get presented a contract, you're like, hey, I like everything but this portion of the contract. Can we adjust this? I think Alan deserves it. Deserves to be able to, at least if he presents a new contract, to be here to discuss it with us in case there is some differences or some adjustments we can make with the current contract. Maybe he's got something.
You understand the differences, of course, between a private entity and a governmental entity. That we can't show favoritism, a private entity can. And so once we put out this contract, that was the contract that we wanted bid upon. If we wanted it to be negotiable, we had to put that in the initial offering, that we would accept negotiations on any contract put forward. We didn't do that.
I believe we really need a tax director. So if we need to do anything possible to have somebody in, even if it's time billing, to complete the tasks.
We need to then decide what we want done, which we did. We put a contract out there, and we didn't get a favorable response. If you look at what he submitted, he basically crossed out everything that we wanted done, even on his timeline. So we need to go back and look at what contract we want out there, but there's nothing that we put out there that he wanted to do. If you look at most of these, he said local assessor. I mean, all the duties of the tax director he declined to do. What do you do?
Well, good thing we have the sales ratio study on the next meeting then.
Is that something, instead of hiring, I mean, if we want this sales ratio done, are we better just to hire him for like 1 month to have it done, you know, at the 5,000?
It takes more than 1 month to do it. You go all the way through all the way till at least June. March, April, May, June to the equalization meeting.
So it'll be 15,000.
Or whatever he has in here.
You guys are missing the point. We can't negotiate with one person. We have to.
But that would be a negotiation, though, when you just hire them on the monthly deal to do a job. Is the rest of the public aware that we're doing that, giving that option? We're a public entity. We have to, if we're allowing someone to put forth a proposal, we have to allow everybody to put forth a proposal.
We haven't had a proposal for 5 years on anything to fill in the position.
It doesn't make any difference. It still shows favoritism.
This shows we're doing anything possible we can to follow the Century Code and fill the position and get the tasks done that need to be done.
We just did that.
Absent this argument, the argument that you guys are having right now, probably the biggest issue is the assessor portion of it. For the townships and for the cities, if they don't have an assessor, and he's not willing to do that in the contract, that's where I'm concerned, is because that's part of the duty of the county, is when there's not an assessor.
And that was my question, is that if you don't hire the contract, but you hire him to do, and can you just tell him, you know, you're hired to do, you know, it's like, you know, you do this is what we don't, this is what we want. Is that not what we can do?
Hire him per month to do each deal. Like, you know, right now we need an assessor and
well, I mean, it's not really any different than if I were to take a job and be appointed as state's attorney, and if I wasn't willing to do part of the job, then you wouldn't appoint me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's not willing to do all the job. On June 1st, homestead property tax credit, all the rest of those credits, he put a line through it.
Right.
He's not willing to do any of the duties of the tax director because he can't. He's already a tax director, and his obligations are fulfilled in Burleigh County. He can't be two places at once. They require him to come to work.
So I spoke with the tax director in Nelson County about this position and point blank asked her, do we need to have a tax director? If we're going to hire a tax director, do we need to have someone that's in the office? And she said, yes, the most important part of the job is the credits and the abatements. And she said, you need someone in here to do that.
I would love somebody in here to do that. But until we have somebody in here to do that, what do we do is the question.
We do what we've been doing for the last 4 years, absent send in a fraudulent sales tax ratio study is what we do.
Oh, come on.
We were going to there's Stephanie, there's no arguing that. We have two different sales ratio studies that contradict each other. We took one to be true, the other one can't be true. So let's just forget that. That's the way it is. It's straight facts, laying beside each other, and they contradict each other. No matter who did them, we took one to be fact and the other one isn't fact. So
sales ratios that needs to be on the next agenda, and we should probably get a quote from somebody to do it because it is due at the end of March. And we cannot fiddle around this time and it be late. We already were didn't look well in the eyes of the state. And
the state doesn't govern us. We govern ourselves. The sales ratio study has been late many times. It's not been done many times. It is not a function of our equalization.
It doesn't look good upon our county to not be following our own century
It
codes.
looks very good upon the county not to be raising people's taxes unnecessarily. That's the most important thing that we have. If you paid attention to what people think about taxes, go talk to somebody in Cooperstown right now and see how they think about taxes.
Sales ratio studies doesn't necessarily mean that your taxes are going to go up.
If you raise a valuation, what happens to the taxes?
Are we going to equalize everything that we need to do?
If you raise a valuation, what happens to the tax?
I don't know. There's too many formulas to put in with it to figure out if it went up or not.
If the valuation of your home goes up, you pay more tax.
Well, it depends. Did his valuation of his home go up higher than mine? So ours are equal now, or are they not?
No.
Because it
If
depends.
your valuation goes up, does your tax go up?
Does it always have to?
Yes, it has to. Because yes, it has to. If your valuation goes up, your tax goes up. If his valuation goes down, his tax goes down. When you're talking equalization, you're talking as a whole group. But individually, when this nonsense took place where they lowered valuations by 40% and raised it by 40%, that raised people's taxes 40% and that lowered people's taxes 40%. There's no getting around that. The state they can argue, well, it all works out in the wash. It doesn't work out in the wash. Someone got paid more tax, someone paid less. And that's the way it is. And what we were just talking about with raising the mill levy amount is what should be done if an entity, namely the school, wants to charge more tax. They raise the mill levy so that they can do it. They don't raise valuations. And this contract was an attempt to go around the rules. And Alan, by crossing out the duties, realized what was taking place here, that he couldn't get into what we were asking. He didn't just necessarily say, well, I won't do this and this and this. He understands that he can't do that because he's already acting as a tax director, and here's his job, and how can he do his job lesser here? It's pretty straightforward. We'll put it on the sales ratio study on the agenda. Anything else? Anything else? I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Averill to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Zorn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. 11:14. Next meeting, this room, March 4th at 9:30 a.m.